Final score is one score. Michigan dominated this game in every facet. It was an incredibly strange thing to see as the Alabama Crimson Tide got the crap kicked out of them on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball for 50 minutes.
I was impressed with the defensive game plan from Michigan's coaching staff. I mean, it seemed like almost every play, someone was coming free, either by design or from one of their D linemen winning a one-on-one matchup and getting to Milroe. And the thing that
they don't blitz often,
right?
But when they do,
they
got home,
free.
Man.
But every single time, it wasn't some crazy drawn up, hey, we have to have a stunt here, so our D tackle is going to take out the offensive tackle, so the DN wraps around and then firing through on the fire zone is the linebacker.
A lot of delays.
What they did a great job of knowing, hey, Milroe is going to see the picture in front of him, and then he's just going to play according to that picture, not realizing that at the snap of the ball, the picture changed. And Michigan had the speed at the linebacker position to get to Milroe before he could get the ball away. But the defensive line did a great job, too, of staying in their pass rush lanes. There was never a moment where Michigan got outside of their pass rush lanes. Milroe then would be able to, make one man miss. If he makes one man miss, then he's running all over this.
He really only had one big run. He had the 18-yarder.
And they were all designed runs.
Yeah, 21 carries for 63 yards.
Right.
They kept him in check. And
all designed.
He couldn't drive the ball down the field at all.
No.
At all. 16 of 23. You liked the completion, but it was 4 yards. Right. 4 yards at a time, 4 yards at a time, 4 yards at a time.
A lot of swings, a lot of bubbles.
He averaged 5 yards per throw. I mean, that's not going to get it done. And look, this isn't me completely dumping on Milroe, but I'm leaning towards siding with Bill O'Brien a little bit more after this game. I was not a Milroe guy coming into this game. His inability to be consistent with his arm is great in a dynamic and athlete as he is. And he does have an absolute cannon, but his consistency is just nowhere near where it needs to be. And this game felt very reminiscent of the Michigan-Ohio State game where there was on Twitter, there was college football message boards. Great account to follow because you just get unhinged fans. And there was an Ohio State fan after the game that said something along the lines of, Michigan really didn't do anything special. It just sat around, ran the ball, and waited for us to screw up. And that's really what they did in this game. It's a smart tactic because you've got the ability to dictate.
Yeah.
I mean, defensively, my goodness, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. 16 negative yardage plays? Are you kidding?
Right. And that's going up against an Alabama team. Think about it. We used to talk about Alabama when they would win all their national titles was because of their dominant offense and defensive lines. And now you're seeing what happens when Michigan catches up. A lot of people were dogging on Jim Harbaugh early on in his career at Michigan because it was, well, Michigan can never win the big game. Michigan can never win the big game. What Harbaugh was doing was he was slowly building this type of team. He had to go in and get guys out of high school because back when he first took the job at Michigan, transfer portal wasn't the way it is. But I think this also shows that a style like what Deion's doing at Colorado doesn't work long term. Now, don't get me wrong. You can go into the portal and go get a good wide receiver. You can go get a good quarterback. You can go get those types of game changers. But when you want to build an offensive line, a group that is built not just on skill level.
And they were missing their best offensive lineman.
But largely, it's built on chemistry and trust.
Which is, it's kind of insane because Zinter being out with a spinal fracture in his leg, which, oof.
It's a huge loss for them. But it almost...
And it shows the depth.
It felt like they didn't skip a beat.
No.
It didn't skip a beat at all.
And the thing is, you look at Michigan's offensive production, right? They get, 350 total yards of offense, 130 on the ground, 220 in the air. And number one, it's a testament to Alabama's defense. It's good. But Michigan's offense, I think because, number one, they played in the Big Ten and they didn't play against any offense that they had to really do anything with. With the 4 Pac-12 teams, and I've said this over and over again, going to the Big Ten next year, I think there's going to be a shock to the system of the Big Ten of, quarterback play can be really good. Because the quarterback play in the Big Ten has sucked. I keep seeing like the whole J.J. McCarthy is ahead of Michael Penix in draft boards, blah, blah. J.J. McCarthy is not a better quarterback than Michael Penix. He's younger, he's healthier, he has, air quotes, more potential. But McCarthy has not done anything this year that goes, oh my God, wow. The most impressive thing he did this weekend was throw a ball so well that even when it got tipped, the spiral held. That's still insane to me. That Alabama defensive lineman, was that Dallas Turner that got his hand on the ball?
I believe so. He jumps up, ball hits his hands.
And I mean, he got a big old chunk of it, and it slows it down, but the spiral holds. Right. I was like, oh. And honestly, looking at what McCarthy saw, the picture that he saw, because it looked like he had the post on the backside. Mm-hmm. If he throws the ball as well as I think he's throwing it, I think he hits the touchdown right away. Mm-hmm. They ultimately get it out of the play, but Roman Wilson makes a incredible adjustment on the ball, right, and keeping that drive going, and then obviously forcing the overtime, right, was one of those things where like Michigan all day long shot themselves in the foot. Over and over.
They should have been up probably 7 or 14 going into halftime, not 3.
Yes.
Or 4, whatever it was.
And you're 2 for 11 on third down conversions. Again, hat tip to Alabama's defense, but you played very conservatively in the sense of, again, Michigan was like, all right, bet. Hey, see, Michigan, bet. They decided we're just not going to make mistakes. We're going to run the ball. We're going to take care of the ball, blah, blah, blah. There's just the one turnover piece for both teams. And you saw, ESPN this morning had Feinbaum on. And to the question.
You said?
Feinbaum?
Feinbaum.
Mr. SEC himself. And instead of talking about Michigan and like, hey, they won the game and they did this, the question was this the best game Nick Saban's ever coached? And it's
the best coaching job.
The best coaching job in a game where Michigan just shot itself in the foot over and over and over again. Untimely penalties, questionable play calling. But again, this has been their MO all season. They've been very good, but sometimes the details are a little off.
Right.
They're a little off. And I think part of that is the parity in college football, but also there's this refusal to accept that Michigan is as good as they are, that they are so good, like a Bama, like a Georgia, that they can make mistakes and still pummel you to death because they're so good on both sides of the ball on offensive defensive lines.
I also think that this is the ultimate Jim Harbaugh team. When you think about how Jim Harbaugh has developed his winners, not just at Stanford, but in the NFL as well, when he was at San Francisco, this is the design he wants. He wants big offensive line. He wants to be able to run the football well. Defensively, he wants a big defensive line that can get after the quarterback when they need to. And then he wants a game manager in J.J. McCarthy. It's the exact same thing when we saw the reemergence of Alex Smith. Before Harbaugh got to San Francisco, Alex Smith was talked about being a bust. He was a bum. No one thought he could get done what he needed to get done. He gets into this system that Jim Harbaugh has, and all of a sudden he's taken that next step. To me, I feel like that's exactly what J.J. McCarthy is. And so even in a game where you struggle on third down, even in a game where you have some questionable coaching decisions, I felt like McCarthy did what he had to do to win in Harbaugh's system, which was don't make the big turnover. Don't make the big sack. Don't make the big play that puts us out of position to win this football game. What McCarthy did is he went out and he managed the game. I agree with you. I don't think he's as good as Michael Penix, but he does a great job of getting done what is asked of him. And that's why Michigan was able to win this game. And when we come back in, a week? A little less than a week. If Michigan is able to beat UW, I think we're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy the exact same way. But if they lose, we're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy being the reason that they were held back.
Being the game manager.
Right.
Which is, I said something about that last week, and somebody said some version of, look, well, he's projected ahead of Michael Penix in the draft. Like, that doesn't matter in college football. The better college quarterback right now, and it's unquestionably Michael Penix Jr. Yeah. We will talk about that game coming up here in the next hour. But where I want to go next is that overtime period. I want to talk about what Michigan did, what Alabama did, and what kind of led to the ending that we got in that game. Everyone wants to talk about J.J. McCarthy, blah, blah, blah. Blake Corum was just a guy that every time they needed something, he got it done. And unfortunately for Corum, he got injured last year and he's lost a gear. Last year, he was special. Little man, breakneck speed, breaking tackles, just cutting in inside phone booths. Just looked like a tremendous running back. He reminded me a ton of Maurice Jones-Drew. And then he obviously has the ACL and he comes back, and he's still really good. Don't get me wrong. He's still an NFL running back. He's just not the NFL running back that I thought he was going to be. But they get to overtime, Will, and Michigan goes with their identity. And they get the counter, and they get great blocking, but then Corum just says, I'm going to grown man run this. I'm going to break a tackle, I'm going to spin out, I'm going to break another arm tackle, and I'm just going to get in the end zone. And I think that was a great contrast between what Michigan is and what Alabama isn't. And what Alabama isn't is the offensive dynamo team that they've been at both the quarterback and wide receiver positions. This is the first time in, 10 years that they haven't had a quarterback/wide receiver combo that went, oh, crap.
Well, this is the irony of it as well, because remember, what was the big knock against Alabama when Saban first got there? Was offensively, they didn't have the dudes.
They didn't have they had the McElroys. They had the game managers.
Right.
They didn't have the explosives guys on the
JJ
edge.
McCarthy.
Yes, and that's exactly it. And this year they have a young quarterback who, look, Milroe could end up being. He could figure it out. I'm not buying that stock. If you want to,
I wouldn't have bought the Jaden Daniels stock. After watching him at Arizona
Listen,
State.
nobody was more out on him than Dusty. Dusty did not believe in him at all.
I feel like Jaden Milroe has shown some flashes of that being a potential.
431, man, just was just slinging that thing.
Right.
And in the open field, he's tremendous.
Right.
But Michigan said, we're going to spy. We're not going to let you, because we know that if we commit the extra guy to you, you're not a good enough quarterback to beat us. And you don't have the dogs on the outside to beat us.
Right.
There's no Jerry Jeudy's. There's no Devonta Smith's. There's no Julio Jones's. None of those guys are on the edge. Isaiah Bond is a nice player. And they have a nice rapport, Milroe and Bond. But they're not. You're not afraid of those guys.
Well, and this is why you had to turn on First Take or Get Up, whatever it was, and Paul Feinbaum was on there, and he starts going, "Well, this is the greatest
coaching job by Nick Saban
because
they're limited at quarterback and they're limited at wide receiver, and it's like, well,
they're limited at running back. They don't have that guy." Yeah. Here's the thing: Alabama is still Alabama, and when Nick Saban is there, and he has, I don't know, this would be a B+ team for him, probably. Maybe a B team.
What's interesting is
better than most A's.
24/7 Sports, they have, as far as team talent grades based on recruiting rankings, it's the number one team of all time.
Really?
2023.
On the defensive side, yeah.
Yeah, the defense is very good.
Yeah.
And they do have a bunch of dudes. And
and Milroe's a 4 or 5 star kid.
Yeah, it depends on who. I think he's a composite 4, but I think he's a 5 somewhere. But, again, they're younger.
Yes.
You're seeing this with Georgia as well, after putting entire classes in the NFL in back-to-back years. With the leveling out of college football, this is where we're at. And on that leveling out, Alabama gets the overtime, and the entire series, I am questioning what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they do there where I go, yep. And I know you disagree to an extent on the last play.
The last play, I disagree. I think the last play was a great call. I think 2 things happened on that play. It was a low snap, which you saw all game from Alabama's center. He had multiple bad snaps in that game. And when that ball came in at a low angle, Jaden Milroe's brain turned off.
Mm-hmm. And he
that play,
put his head down and went right in the middle of the pile.
That play is a zone read. Mm-hmm. So when you motion that wide receiver across,
is it though? Because the back's completely out. But by the time the ball snaps, he's all the way gone.
It's with the jet sweep. What he is doing is he's reading the defensive end. When the defensive end comes through, he is reading if the defensive end plays the
mesh point to me looked like it wasn't there.
If the D end comes at the quarterback, he's going to hand that ball off in the jet sweep. They have the edge. It's a touchdown.
You think that the timing's there for that though?
Yep.
I didn't think that they had it there
because it was a low snap.
But even off the snap's good. I just feel like the mesh wasn't.
It's what the design. That's what the design of that play.
To me, it felt like, number one, they didn't execute.
They did not. It was a low snap.
But even beyond the low snap, even if the snap's good, I don't think that mesh point's there. I think they botched that.
He might then.
And then beyond that, he doesn't make the read. And then number 3, he just decides, I'm going to plug the hole of my forehead.
Well, and that's the thing. I actually think he made the right read because the defensive end does come upfield. So he shouldn't hand that ball off. He should take it. But the way his guard is pulling, when you watch it from the back angle, his guard is pulling to be a lead blocker, not a trap kick out. Milroe runs it like it's a trap kick out. So what I'm saying there is if it's a trap play, Milroe should run a gap, which is where Milroe ran. But the way the guard pulls out and around the edge of the tight end, that looks more to me like a B to a C gap power look. And if that's the look, Milroe should then run to the outside. And if he does, he walks in untouched. And we're probably still playing that football game. Maybe not right now, but I think we're going to double OT.
I think the bigger issue is they got to overtime and they did not risk it. They did not attempt to go to the end zone.
Yeah, they wanted to stay running.
They wanted to stay within themselves.
Turnover.
And it's like, you looked at it. I mean, they come out first play, it's a check down for a yard.
Right.
Nothing vertical. Oh, okay. Second play, it's the designed run. Milroe goes. They get the new downs. Then they run the dive, and it's stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Right. Then they run the counter, and he is absolutely destroyed in the backfield. Michigan gets the big number 55 gets in there for penetration and just eats them up. Now it's a loss of 6. And now you're sitting at it and you go, okay. They find Burton up the sideline at the loss of 6. So you gain 5 yards.
Right.
Where they're playing the soft coverage and they're going, we'll give you that. Because we know you're not going to. Michigan knew Alabama was not going to test the back end. And they kept everything in front of them. They said, beat us. And for Feinbaum saying, is this the best coaching job Nick Saban did? The lack of risk-taking when you know you are the underdog in this situation. You've watched 4 quarters of football. You know that you are not going to get another opportunity here. That for them to not take one chance at the end zone in that entire period, I don't know, man. I get the limitations of Milroe. I get that you don't have the dudes on the edge. I get all those things. To me, all that screams is you need to take that chance because you don't have the game breaker.
I also think to a degree that you don't take that chance because it's always worked for you. And at the end of the day, they didn't.
You are who you are.
They didn't take that chance, right? If Milroe follows his guard, they score a touchdown there. Jaden Milroe did not follow his guard the way he was supposed to run that play. That's why that play kind of worries me. And I'm sure we'll get into it when we talk about the UW game and the play that they went for it on 4th and 1 with Dylan Johnson back at quarterback. It's almost the same play. The window dressing is different,
sure,
but it is a similar designed play. And the reason I don't like it in that situation, and I like the Milroe one a little bit better, but it is
who you are.
There's 1 to 2 options.
Yeah.
And if both of those options are taken, or if you have a bad snap that changes up your timing on everything, you don't have that second or that third option to get the ball out. You don't have the opportunity to, I have, a wide receiver slant on the back end, so I have a third option if the first 2 options are gone. Or if it is truly a quarterback keep, there's no one else running, so I have a second option. I'm a big guy who believes in option. Option football has been in football since basically the creation of it. People just don't realize that option football. The
variations of it that exist now.
Exactly. I mean, all Chip
just because we're not running a wing tee.
All Chip Kelly ran was triple option.
Yeah.
It was just set up completely different.
With an RPO on side of it.
And for me, when you come into these games and you come into the final play, how you don't have an extra option or a third option where you can throw the ball. With a quarterback as limited as Milroe is, he always, at least before yesterday, he seemed to make the big play when it mattered. I would have liked to have seen another option on that. Or with Milroe, roll him out and have a flood concept because you can still run if it's open. And if it's not, one of the other wide receivers will be open, short, medium, or in the end zone. I just don't love that play call.
Yeah, and I think it's ultimately where we end up on it.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the best part. If he follows his block, he scores. And I guarantee you, when they have a meeting...
You mean if he Blake Corums it?
That's All Blake Corum did.
He followed his blocks. He did bounce it outside, but yeah, he followed that pole.
But that's how that pole's designed. Yeah. The linebacker stayed inside,
kicks out, and then you get the inside on the safety, and then it's up to him to beat a guy.
That's why you're scholarshiped. That's why Blake Corum got a scholarship to Michigan, because he can beat that safety.
Yeah.
As an offensive lineman, that's what we were always told. If you can get the running back onto the safety,
you won.
You've done your job. And that's what Michigan did. And against Alabama, the backside tackle or tight end, that guy got blown up. Still should have been able to score in a walk-in if he follows his block. And he didn't.
Well, it is done and over with. The granddaddy of them all, Michigan winning in overtime, 27-20